Everyone here to the Smash Sports Show right here on Smash FM here on Lockdown Wednesday here in Melbourne. Of course, let's go up to Queensland in particular. Of course, go to the UQ Athletics Club. Of course, speak to one of their athletes in particular. And of course, she joins us right now. Of course, her name is Caitlin. Thanks, Caitlin, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
No worries. Well, I guess for you, what have you been doing in the last couple of months, obviously with COVID, and obviously now I'm assuming that you've got back into some sort of training in the last couple of months?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Queensland's been pretty lucky compared to you guys down in Victoria. So we certainly had shut down in facilities kind of March, April. I don't know, it's all a bit of a blur now. I'm trying to get my timeline straight. But yeah, we definitely had, no gym access, no track access for a while. That being said, very lucky that I'm, a runner, and, at the end of the day, I can kind of just get out on the road or find a park and essentially still do my sport, compared to a few other, events that were probably finding that a bit more challenging. So yeah, we basically got through most of our season. We kind of had February, March is the bulk of our domestic season. So we got through most of that and just missed out on our national championships, which would have been our Tokyo selection trials. But, much more of a season than a lot of sports got to get through before COVID really took hold. So, yeah, kind of came off, had a bit of a break, and then just, a week or two, and then back into training in, I had home gym set up, which really wasn't too bad, and then just running on the grass in the local park, basically. And then through the Queensland Academy of Sport, slowly been able to get some access back on the track, with temperature checking and all this sort of stuff going on beforehand. And then a bit more recently getting back into the gym as well. So I've, all things considered, been pretty lucky, and more or less training is back to normal, probably for the last 6 weeks or so.
Now, you mentioned about the domestic season. Of course, very luckily enough, most of the athletics events are in summer. So obviously got in time just before COVID. How did you go during the domestic season?
Well, I tore my hamstring at the end of November last year. So, and we'd had quite a late world championship. So I didn't get a massive off season really. So my season was not fantastic. So, kind of Tokyo being delayed, all this sort of stuff on the, obviously very devastating for a lot of people, kind of played into my favor in some ways. I think if I'm being realistic, I probably wasn't going to make the team as things were sitting in kind of March this year. So, obviously the COVID's had major impacts on a lot of people in a lot of different ways. But for me, there was a little bit of a silver lining in that regards, because my domestic season really wasn't where I had envisioned or hoped it would be at. So I guess I get kind of like a redo next year, hopefully.
Pretty much almost answered my next question about the Tokyo Games. Obviously got pushed back, as you mentioned, by a year to July, August next year. Was that a blessing in disguise to you? And especially, how's now the preparation now with almost less than a year left before the Games? Yeah,
so as I said, for me, definitely blessing in disguise, or not even really in disguise for me. Just blatantly, I was like, oh, some more time I could do with that. And, obviously there's still a bunch of questions about whether it will go ahead. The ICE is certainly putting forward that they're confident it will happen. As we see numbers still creeping up, other countries around the world, I can't say, if I had to bet money, I would probably say maybe it's not going to happen. I would love it to go ahead, but, obviously just have to see how things pan out. So as far as I can see, though, within Australia, we're talking hopefully, around Christmas, our borders will start to open up within the country. So hopefully we'll have, like a normal domestic season come, February, March next year. So I'm really just focused on trying to do that to the best of my capacity, run well through that season and at our trials. If Tokyo happens, fantastic. If it doesn't, we'll go from there. But yeah, definitely for me, the focus at the moment is just on that kind of domestic season in February and March.
Now, during the lockdown that you've had right at the start of the year, around probably March, April, May, I guess, what did you do to sort of get yourself, fitness going and obviously, I guess, motivation to get yourself back on the training track as soon as you just got out of lockdown?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, Queensland was comparatively, we came out of this all pretty well compared to some of the other states. So we probably never had quite as harsh a lockdown as some of the other states did. And I think the other side of things was I still work as a physio about 30 hours a week. So it was quite nice to kind of be going to work, having some normality, I guess, giving some structure to the days and not, I know a lot of people kind of sit around being like, what day of the week is it? Because you're just, you know, at home and no idea what's going on. So I think work was a really good kind of structure for my week. I certainly did take a couple of weeks of just, I guess I was kind of going to training, you know, training on a grass track at the park, that sort of thing. But the motivation was definitely down, kind of just being like, and I guess the other thing was at that point, we didn't know whether our clinic would get shut down at work as well. So I'm going, okay, so I might lose my job. There's no Olympics. Like, what am I doing here? This seems very unimportant right now. So I think, you know, it was definitely a wave of a, you know, variety of different emotions that went on. But yeah, luckily we were lucky enough to be able to stay open at work. So I got to keep that structure and then slowly just, yeah, go, look, if Tokyo's on, great. If it's not, like, you know, let's just keep working towards like keeping your fitness, that sort of thing. So, you know, it's definitely different training on your own. Like I'm used to training, you know, with a group. So training on my own and then just training, you know, on a grass track, hoping that distances are measured out correctly and that sort of stuff. So it's definitely different. But I tried to just take that as an opportunity and I was still checking in regularly with my sports psych and just looking at like, how can we approach this as a novel experience? What can we learn from this? What can we play around with from a headspace perspective and try and learn some new skills and get something out of this very unusual, unique situation?
You mentioned about obviously nationals being cancelled. I think it was like within maybe 1 or 2 weeks of happening, of course. I guess for you, how devastating was that for you to not do nationals this year? With nationals obviously being pushed back to 2021, I guess, how's, I guess, that preparation going to that nationals?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as I said, my domestic season wasn't quite going to plan. But that being said, I felt like I was, you know, just starting to get things coming together how I would have liked. So, yeah, it was definitely disappointing. We also did have the Queensland Track Classics for the very last kind of premier meet in the domestic season right before national championships both got cancelled. Yeah, I think Queensland Track Classic only got cancelled like 2 days beforehand and nationals got cancelled about 2 weeks out. So yeah, that was definitely disappointing because there was that sense of like, haven't really had a run this season that I'm happy with. And I felt like I was just getting it together and now I don't get the opportunity to kind of see how that would have gone. So definitely frustrating on the one hand. But I think at that point, it seemed pretty obvious that was like the right call and everything was just so up in the air and so unknown at that point. It did feel like, yeah, look, there are more important things going on right now. And I think we can, you know, just refocus and regroup. And I think, yeah, moving forwards to next year, like, I guess from my perspective, or a lot of my best seasons that I've had have come off the back of not going away and competing internationally the year before and having a really long big base, which is essentially what I've been gifted this season. So, yeah, it's been rough at times training on my own or even worse, having to train with my husband and having him kick my butt. But it's not good for the marriage. It's really not. But I know that's, you know, I've had a long time to really regain fitness. So I'm hoping, you know, next season is, you know, I can kind of, yeah, produce some runs that I'm really happy with.
Now, considering Queensland are in a much better position most of the country at the moment, is there any particular events that you've got coming up in the next couple months?
Yeah, I haven't locked anything in as yet, but certainly Queensland Athletics just had, they've had a few cross-country meets and then last weekend they just had their first kind of track meet since all of this kind of kicked off. So it's definitely, you know, looks a bit different to what we've had in the past, but they've done a really good job to get something up and running. And I believe in the next few weeks, they're going to kind of lay out what the rest of the season to December will look like. So I'm hoping maybe towards the end of October, early November to put a race out. I have a sneaking suspicion that it might be an 800, which is much further than I would like to run. But I usually open my season with something that's not a 400. And as I get older, the 800 is a better option than the 1-2. So we'll see. There's still some negotiations to happen with the coach, but it'll probably be an 800.
Now, of course, you mentioned about obviously training and all that. If you have gone back to the track, how different has that been to firstly get back to the track, and secondly, especially with what's, all the COVID protocols and obviously with the COVID safe side of things, I guess, how have you found it at first, and now have you adapted to it?
Yeah, I think definitely been different. I mean, I think my body has not particularly appreciated all the changes that have gone on. I think, there's obviously some baseline level of stress and anxiety in everyone's life at the moment. And then going from running on the track 3 days a week to running on the grass 3 days a week to then back on the track, I've had a few kind of niggles and things popping up. So I had a bit of an Achilles injury flare up getting fully back onto the track. That's all kind of settled down and back into the swing of things now. But there's definitely an adaptation process there. And even I've trained on like a synthetic track since I was 13, but getting back onto it after, a couple of months running on the grass, I just felt completely uncoordinated and like I didn't know what I was doing, and I had to almost like relearn how to run on a synthetic track. It was very weird. So that's kind of been interesting. And then, I guess from a COVID perspective, like all my access at the moment is through the Queensland Academy of Sport. So we like log every day our questionnaire. So, like, do you have any symptoms? Have you been traveling? Like blah, blah, blah. That type of stuff each day. And early days, it was also temperature check before you come in. And it's still very much, it's like, I don't think I would ever have hand sanitized during a training session before, but it's, multiple times throughout the session, and become just aware how aware you are of like touching something while you do leg swings, and then hands on the ground between a rep when you're catching your breath, and you're like, I touch a lot of stuff. I should probably. So, there's a few different things, but I think it is just becoming normal for us all now. And, doesn't take up too much extra kind of brain space to remember to do all those things.
Mm. Now, for you, how did you get involved in athletics, and why did you choose it?
Yeah, I guess my pathway is probably slightly abnormal. Most people kind of go along that little athletics pathway, which is really quite nicely set out. I guess I have an older brother, so I started life out doing Auskick, and then I played club AFL up until I was 10 because my brother played AFL and wanted to be like him, so I did that. And around under 10s is when it starts to get like properly physical, like and there was no women's AFL when I grew up, so I was just playing with the boys, and they didn't really know if they were allowed to tackle me, and it was all a bit weird. So and that was around about the time we started doing athletics at school, and I guess I just had a bit of a natural talent for it. And so my school PE teacher had just suggested that's something I might want to pursue. And so I went out to the University of Queensland. They run some after school programs for school kids. And so I kind of moved into doing that when I was, about 9 or 10, and kind of stopped the AFL and moved into that as my afternoon sport. And then when I was in grade 7, so about 12 years old, I guess those programs kind of take you through primary school. And then as I moved into high school, I basically just outgrew the programs and kind of just transitioned across to training with Eric Brown, who has been my coach ever since. So I'm now 28. So I have been training with him for more than half my life, which is a very long time.
Now, you mentioned about your coach just a moment ago, and perfect segue to my next question, which is tell us a bit about your coach that you've been with pretty much half your life, and what have you learnt from him throughout your time
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, as I said, I've been with Eric since I was, I think 12. So it's a very strange kind of relationship, I guess. I think sometimes he still thinks of me as a little kid occasionally. But I think, it's been nice for him to really see me grow up. It's like, he came to my 18th birthday party. He came to my wedding. And, he's just this very sweet, lovely old man. And I'd have to say an excellent junior coach. He really, I guess, held me back a little bit when I was younger and didn't overload my body. A lot of the girls that I grew up racing did lifetime PBs at 15 or just got burnt out and left the sport at, 16, 17. And he really held me back and nurtured me in a way that meant that, I was doing PBs just because I was growing as I got older. I still had a lot more to give to the sport, past high school. So I think that has been really, really beneficial, and I really appreciate the way that he's done that. And I see, the young athletes coming through our squad now, and he continues to do that in a really great way. And I think as I've moved, through, obviously as a physio, now and even just, having been an athlete for so long, there is almost like a collaboration that goes on now. As I can kind of bring ideas and we can chat about things and work together on programming and saying, this is working, this is not working, like how can we adapt? So it's a really lovely relationship of coming together of the minds, I guess. And yeah, I think I've just, from him, I would say he's always optimistic, which is very nice. Sometimes it's easy to, if you're not seeing progress or, I've had a few seasons where I maybe haven't been at my best, but he's definitely always optimistic. So I think I can take a little bit of that optimism from him is probably the main thing. Yeah.
Yeah, being an Olympian, what would be some highlights throughout your athletics journey so far?
Yeah, definitely Olympic finalists. That's a all-time career highlight. I think, we went into that Olympic 4x4 ranked about 15th of the 16 teams. Like we were there, we earned our spot, but, we were definitely not in the top tier. But we all knew that we kind of had a bit more to give, and we all knew that was something we were capable of. And so for us to kind of all just pull it out when it mattered, and run, pretty much all of us ran about lifetime bests in the heat to get us into the final. That's very, very special. And I think just the atmosphere we had in the team, as a group of girls in Rio was really special as well. I think as well, it's hard to go past running at a home Commonwealth Games. I wish we had a heat, so I got 2 opportunities to run out there, but it was just phenomenal to run, home state even, so much like friends and family in the crowd. You don't get that very often. So that was really, really lovely. Obviously we would have liked to come away from Gold Coast with a medal. We ran 2 seconds quicker than we'd run at the Glasgow Commonwealth Games, and we came like 5th and we come 4th in Glasgow. So it was like a bittersweet thing of like, okay, the teams moved on, but the whole competition's moved ahead too. So disappointing not to medal there, but certainly just the experience and the whole games as well was just fantastic, and just really special to be a part of, and turning up in the village and seeing what a great job they'd done. It made you really proud to be an Aussie and proud to be a Queenslander. And I'm seeing all the Sydney 2000 memories kicking around this week as well. And, I was pretty young in 2000, but thinking about my experience at Gold Coast, I can just imagine how fantastic that would have been for everyone that was involved in Sydney back then. So I think definitely Rio and Gold Coast would be highlights. And then I'd say getting to run an individual 400 at the 2013 World Champs. It's the only senior Australian individual 400 I've run. I'm usually just on the relay. Moscow was an interesting place, but certainly getting to run that individual 400 at 2013 World Champs was pretty special as well.
Now, I'll turn my attention to Rio first, which is the Olympic Games 4 years ago, which seems to be a very long time now since then. Now, I have to ask this question. Tell us a bit about your relay team, and I guess, do you still stay in touch with them?
Kind of moved up to 800s now, but yeah, the four of us especially are certainly still in quite regular communications. I think Jess has kind of played around a little bit with running 1s and 2s versus 4s, but Annalise and I certainly, we're racing each other all the time. So yeah, we certainly message each other and stay in contact. And I think that, as I said before, like, part of the reason why that team was so successful is that we were friends, and we all, really respected each other, and we got along really well. And we wanted to run well for ourselves. We wanted to run well for, Australia, but we also wanted to run well for each other. Like, we wanted to perform well for one another. And so I think that was certainly part of the reason why our team did so well, was that bond that we had together. And then I think, going through that whole process together only brings you closer together. And I think, being Olympic finalists together is a bond that we will have for a very long time. Our team, we've got, some really great junior talent coming through now in Ben Dere and Ellie Beer and even Ella Connolly. So, the landscape of what the relay team might look like is potentially changing. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see what happens next year in terms of who makes the team and where everyone's at, and I guess how everyone comes out of this whole strange year. But that team from Rio was definitely very special, and that the whole few weeks of that experience were life highlights.
Now, let's turn our attention to the Gold Coast one in 2018, which is the Commonwealth Games, because they're on your home state. Tell us, similar question I just asked about the Olympics one, which I'm going to ask you again with the Commonwealth. Tell us a bit about that team, if it's any different to the one in the Olympic Games, and do you still stay in touch with them?
Yeah, I think it was a similar team. So we had our squad for Rio was Annalise, myself, Morgan, Jess Thornton, Monica Brennan, and Lauren Bowden. And then our team for Gold Coast was Annalise, Morgan, myself, Lauren, and then Jess didn't make the team, unfortunately, and neither did Monica, and then we had Ben Dere come in. So kind of that core group of us was more or less the same. And then in the end, Ben Dere ended up tearing her hamstring and didn't get to run in the relays. So the team that ran at Gold Coast is kind of a group of girls that's been kicking around for a while. We'd run at the 2014 Glasgow Games together as well. So, and I think, and again, that's part of it. I think we've kind of got to come through it and be teammates for so long now. And we know what each other likes on race day and all this sort of stuff. So it's been really, and I was on a World Junior team with Annalise back in 2010. So it's pretty fun to actually get to have that journey together and come through as juniors through to senior athletes. And as I said before, we're definitely still, we're all in touch still. And it's one of the highlights of going around and running the domestic season is getting to catch up with everyone face to face. And I don't know, maybe next year we won't be allowed to give each other hugs after the race. I don't know, but that's always been one of the really fun parts of getting to compete against each other.
Now, representing Australia is the ultimate goal, and obviously you've achieved that quite numerous of times at big major events like the Olympics, the Commonwealth Games, the World Championships. For you, donning the green and gold, what does that mean to you?
I mean, on the one hand, you do the sport because you love it. There's certainly not a lot of money in track and field. I'm not here for the paycheck. I do it to see, what I can get out of myself and how good can I be. Certainly wearing the green and gold is, it just fills you with pride. And it's really, as much as it is an individual sport, it takes a village. I've got coach, I've massage therapists, physios, strength and conditioning, sports psych, all these different people behind me. And that's, as well as friends and family and partner all have to kind of chip in to make it happen. So for them as well, it's kind of, I think, like a reward to see me, get to do what I love. And yeah, I still have clear memories of kind of walking out at World Juniors on my first real Australian team, and running, and I ran the 100 there. I kind of, ran the heat, and it's like, just goosebumps. And I was kind of like, yeah, I want to do this. And it's difficult to put into words, but it's pretty incredible.
Now, what does the sport of athletics mean to you? I know you just mentioned part of it in that last response, but I guess what does athletics mean to you, and especially being part of UQ?
Yeah, I think in terms of the sport, I guess when I was younger, I just really did it because it was fun. And then because I was good at it, it's like easy. And then it kind of, I guess, almost becomes a bit of your identity. And then what I've really worked on in more recent times with the sports psych is looking at how is this a way for me to nourish the things that are important to me. So, my values of integrity and courage and gratitude, how can I nourish that in this sport? And so, on those days where you maybe don't feel like going to training, what can I pull out of myself and get myself out the door and still put in a good effort today? And, I think especially the sport of track and field, there's nowhere to hide. It's very exposing. And so it builds character and it reveals character. And I think that's one of the things I really love about it. Like some days it makes you want to cry. But, it's also, it can fulfill you with the highest of highs as well. Yeah. And then, UQ, I've been a member of UQ since I was like 10 years old. I don't know, like, I can't remember not being a member of UQ Athletics Club. And for me, I remember as a junior athlete, seeing all like the history. It's one of the oldest sporting clubs attached to the University of Queensland. It's been around since 1912, I want to say. So it's got this amazing history. So many Australian representatives. We've got a lovely honour board up in our clubhouse, in our club room. So many Olympians and Australian representatives, and it's just really moving to be part of that history. I've been on the executive committee for 10 years as well now, and it certainly got its challenges, but I really enjoy, I guess, trying to continue to grow the club culture and history, and move the club forwards as well as the sport.
Now, I have to ask, what's your personal best time in your favourite event?
My 400 metre PB is 52.16.
And what time are you trying to beat before the Olympics?
I really would just like to, anything, if it's like 51.99, like I just want to crack that 52. I think the most recent, the qualification process has changed a little bit, but I think the most recent A standard was a 51.90. So, something around that high 51 would be good, but yeah, I just want to crack that 52.
Well, let's hope you can definitely do that, Caitlin. Now, of course, do you have any short or long-term goals in the sport of athletics other than the Tokyo Games?
Yeah, I think that it's obviously all a little bit up in the air. So it feels a little bit hard to make those goals. And I think, but we will still have so they've done a bit of a reshuffle because we were meant to have a World Championships in 2021. Right. That's been moved to 2022 now. And then there'll obviously be Birmingham Commonwealth Games in 2022 as well. So it's going to end up being a very jam-packed kind of year or two in there. But I think for me, I am getting older. So my goal is really just to kind of see where we get to next year and then, kind of reassess the situation. If I'm running PBs and still enjoying it and balancing everything in my life, I'd love to kind of, keep going. But there are also other things in my life that I'd like to do. And, running is takes up a lot of time and energy. So, for me, it's really just around kind of getting, hopefully making that team for Tokyo and then kind of running sub 52 and seeing kind of where things are at and then going from there.
Now, what would be your advice to our listeners in Queensland that should get involved in athletics, especially down at UQ, down at St. Lucia?
Yeah, I think athletics is a great in that it's really like pretty much anyone can run, or jump or throw, it's relatively accessible in that way. And so I think, I think a lot of people kind of did track and field at school and they're like, oh, I haven't done it for a while. But I think it's one of those things you can kind of just pick it up and give it a go. So I think don't be afraid. And I think while it is an individual sport, if you can kind of find a squad of people that are, similar goals or level and aspirations as you, then it certainly can have a really lovely social aspect to it as well. There's, I think Q Run is like the social running side of the sport as well. And so there's certainly a lot of people who, you can get together and run and meet new people. And as far as social distancing goes, it's a very safe sport as well. So there's always that benefit too. And I think, obviously personally, I've got a lot of enjoyment out of it. And I think it's really nice to be able to see yourself making those little incremental improvements. So, there's a lot of benefits and a lot of positives to the sport, both, on an individual level and on a bigger, social level as well. So, I would say check out either Queensland Athletics or Q Run and kind of have a search for kind of clubs that are close by and get involved.
Now let's finish up with some quick light-hearted questions, which is any embarrassing moments on the track?
I was having to think about this. I'm generally a very unembarrassing person. So I remember my friends trying to tell embarrassing stories at my hens party and stories were all more embarrassing for them than me. But I would say 2011 was kind of like my first proper senior national championships. And I was kind of just, I guess, doing it to do it. I didn't really have any specific goals or outcomes in mind. And Steve Hooker was there and I was so excited and I got him to sign my training diary and I was so happy with myself. And then I ended up coming second and making the Australian team for the 4x4 relay and was on a team with him later in that year. And it was well, this is kind of awkward because I fangirled pretty hard a couple months ago and now we're on a team together. So I feel like that's probably the height of my track and field embarrassment anyway.
Now, who's a comedian out there at UQ?
Think of when I'm at the QAS gym, I would say Matt Denny, discus thrower. Certainly, there's a lot of general banter that goes on, but I would say Matt Denny or Tom Gamble definitely probably throw the most chat.
Any good singers or dancers we should know about?
Oh, Na Anang, long jumper and 100-meter sprinter, top-notch dancer, definitely.
Oh, okay. Now, do you have a pre-competition superstition or ritual?
I mean, I've tried to move away from the superstitions and the rituals. Just from a sports psych perspective, apparently it's not good to think that if you don't have your lucky socks, you're not going to run fast. But I will say, I always like to, especially for major champs, I get my nails done to match my uniform and hair ribbons to match my uniform as well. I grew up doing dance, so I'm very much into the full costume, look good, feel good, run fast.
We'll finish up with this one last one, which is now during of course, the Queensland lockdown, did you try anything new? And if so, do you have a hidden talent that you didn't think you had?
I think because I was still going to work, I didn't really have to, I felt a little bit left out. Everyone's making sourdough and doing all these things. And I was well, I'm just going to work. So I'm going to say no, but my husband did buy quite a large fish tank. And now we have about 7 new fish pets. So it's not really a talent or a skill, but I'm a new pet owner.
And of course, I'll have to finish up with this one last one. For anyone that should follow your progress on the socials, how can they go about it, Caitlin?
Just on Insta, at Caitlin.Sargent-Jones.
Well, Caitlin, thank you so much for getting up your time to join us. It's awesome having you on the show. Also, we want to wish you all the best for the preparations, hopefully into that Australian team for the Tokyo 2021 games and of course, and beyond, hopefully in the Birmingham one as well in 2022 in the Commonwealth Games. And we send our best wishes and hopefully we'll get to catch up with you in person at a competition sometime down the track.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, guys.
No worries. And that's Caitlin there, of course, Olympian, as well as an athlete there at the University of Queensland Athletics Club. Of course, if you are in Brisbane and, of course, you want to get involved in athletes, make sure you get down to UQ down at St. Lucia. One of the best venues I've been to when I was in Queensland. So make sure you get down there and have a go. There's more on the Smash Sports Show right after this. Don't go away here on Lockdown Wednesday.